One well-known foundational technique about harp playing is that we need to be plucking with our fingers directly into the palm of our hand and not curling the fingers up. Now that's going to help us play more fluently, to play with less tension, and also to play more quickly and easily in the long run. Now many beginner harpists feel really frustrated when they try to change this, because no matter how hard they try, it can feel like it's just not natural to pluck in this way. So if you ever feel like that, you want to change your technique in this way, but something seems to be standing in your way, then I think today's video might be helpful for you. Hello everyone, I'm Christy Lynn, and if you're learning to play the harp and you're looking for some advice and encouragement along the way, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. So make sure you subscribe and click that bell icon so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video every Thursday. When one of my harp students first came to me, she knew that she needed to work on her harp technique, and she thought that it was just to do with practicing not curling and getting her fingers into the palm of her hand, but she was having some trouble with that. And when I analyzed her technique, I realized that there was something more foundational that was holding her back from changing that technique. And that was that the height of her harp compared to her body wasn't setting her up for success. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at the foundational aspects of harp technique and how the height of your harp could be affecting your ability to play with good harp technique. So let's start out by looking at the basic principles of hand and arm positioning with the harp. So we want to make sure that our fingers are pointing down and our thumbs are pointing up. Our fingers pluck directly into the palm of the hand and the thumb comes over the top. We want to make sure that our wrist is either neutral or towards a dip in the wrist, never like that. We want to also make sure that the forearm is somewhere between horizontal and 45 degrees to the ground. Okay, that's depending on different factors like how high up on the harp you're playing and that kind of thing. Then we also want to look at the upper arm. That needs to be somewhere a little way away from the body. I normally say around 45 degrees, but it kind of depends on different factors as well. And then we want to make sure that we're playing in the middle of the strings, because that's where we get the best tone. If you're wondering why I'm looking up there, it's because I'm checking that I'm pointing right, and that's where the little viewfinder is. Okay, so somewhere in the middle of the strings, right? So let's look at what happens to these different factors when we change the height of the harp. Okay, I'm just going to change the height quickly and then I'll show you. Okay, so now my harp is very high compared to my body. With the harpsichord, that means like my chin is right next to the knee block over here. And what I find when your harp is very high is that it's quite natural to want to play with this kind of position, right? So what we see there is my arms are up against my body and my forearms are almost parallel to the strings, right? And what happens then is it's natural to want to pluck away from the strings, and that's going to be curling. If we try and pluck down into the palm of the hand, have a look at that third finger plucking down, it kind of feels like I'm plucking parallel to the strings and plucking downwards, and it doesn't feel like I'm getting good power. It kind of feels unnatural to play with good technique. Now let's have a look at what it was like when my harp is at a lower height compared to my body. Okay, so now when I'm plucking in the middle of the strings, as you can see, it's in the middle there, my arms are more likely to be away from my body, whereas when I was up higher, my arms are more likely to be up against the side of my body, because the alternative would be quite high to get that angle, right? So we'd have that when it's high. Now that it's down low, we're more likely to have a little bit of a gap between my body and my arms. Also, plucking into the palm of my hand feels more natural because of this angle. Okay, and lastly, we're looking at when the harp is really low compared to your body. This is not as common a problem, particularly with the harpsichord, because you're unlikely to want it to be this low compared to your body. But it does often happen with a floor harp, and well, not often, but sometimes. And what will happen if your harp is really low compared to your body is you're more likely to hunch over and then have problems with your back and shoulders and your neck. So that's not great either. Okay, so now let's look at what happens when it's a floor harp. So now I'm quite low compared to the harp. I'm sitting on a low chair, and if I play in the middle of the strings, my arms are quite low, and the natural thing would be to curl a bit if I'm plucking away. I've so trained myself not to curl that it's kind of hard to do. But if I were to pluck, to have my forearms at a better height, my arms would have to be really quite high, and I start to feel a little bit of a strain on my shoulders. Now I'm back to the more comfortable height for me. I'm using the stool I usually use for the harp, and now we'll see if I'm playing in the middle of the strings. It's more natural for me to have a little bit of a gap between my body and my arms. And when I'm plucking, it feels more natural, more practical when I'm actually plucking straight into the palm of my hands. So I have to say that when we're testing out the height of the harp compared to our body and all these different things about technique, you have to be really careful not to compare yourself to other people and try and make yourself look the same. So what I wouldn't do is for you to look at the height of the harp compared to my body and then try and copy that exactly for you. And it's going to be different compared when you consider everyone's length of their body, the length of their arms, particularly fingers. Everyone's fingers are going to look different when they're playing the harp. So you don't want to be just copying someone else, and you also don't want to be measuring exact angles like 45 degrees and all of this, and trying to keep exactly strictly to that. The reason I'm explaining all these different aspects to it is because I want you to test it out and for you to know that all these different things are going to affect your technique so that you can test it out and figure out what works for you. You'll see really accomplished harpists playing with the harp at all different heights. You'll see them with different angles and different ways of plucking, and they've found out what is effective for them. So I want you to test it out for yourself. If you have a harpsichord or a lap harp, you're going to need to change the length of the strap or how it's placed compared to your body when it's on your lap. If you have a floor harp, you're going to have to either change the height of the feet of your harp, or if it's a smaller harp, you might need to put it up onto a little pedestal, something like that, or you can look at changing the height of your stool. So you're going to have to test things out and figure out how all of these different things affect your technique. So I really think it's no use trying to correct your finger technique if other aspects of your harp technique are not setting you up for success. So all the best with figuring this out and testing out all the different aspects of your harp technique, and particularly the height of your harp. And if you feel like you need a little bit of help along the way, I suggest you workshop this with either a harp teacher or maybe a harpist friend, and you could even ask people at your harp circle if you have one. If you don't have a harp circle, we're going to be discussing this concept at my virtual harp circle, which happens every month. We meet together with harpists all around the world, and we have a virtual chat, hangout, Skype type thing, and we'll be talking about this there. So if you're interested in joining, then have a look at my Patreon page and you can see what's involved. But also, I think you should share this video with a friend who you think it might help, and make sure you subscribe to this channel because I put up new harp related videos every Thursday, and click that bell notification button so that you can be notified when I upload a new video, because just subscribing doesn't do that anymore, apparently. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week Thursday. Bye!